Porcelana jest częścią ceramiki. Porcelana jest
Porcelain is ceramic,
ale jest ceramiką
but it is the most refined of all ceramic
najbardziej szlachetną ze
materials.
wszystkich materiałów.
What sets it apart is its translucency or semi-translucency. When made thin enough, you can see your fingers through it or the color of the liquid inside the cup. No other material offers such an effect.
Który znajduje się w filiżance. Żaden inny materiał nie daje takiego efektu. Również dzięki temu jest
This also makes it very delicate and refined.
subtelna,
It pleases the eye and captivates.
i zachwyca.
Porcelana to jest moja miłość. To jest coś, co
Porcelain is my
wywołuje
love.
uśmiech na twarzy.
It's something that brings a smile to my face. It evokes emotions in me. It's something I associate with elegance, home, and respect. Porcelain feels warm, carries emotions, and allows stories and memories to be passed on.
Glina ma w sobie
Clay has something magical about it. It's very sensual and tactile.
sensualna, haptyczna, czasem jak
Sometimes, when I work with clay, I feel as though I'm touching human skin.
dotykam człowieka,
It's soft, it yields, as if I were touching another person.
Wydaje się, tak jakbym dotykała drugiego człowieka. Pracę w ceramice zaczęłam po studiach. Wróciłam
I
do
started
Polski.
working with ceramics during my studies. I returned to Poland after first completing my studies at the Academy of Fine Arts in Łódź, and then pursuing postgraduate studies in Norway. In ceramics, I mostly work with porcelain, which is an incredibly challenging and demanding material. Few people venture into working with porcelain because it requires extensive knowledge and experience. Additionally, one must accept that there's a significant number of rejects and unsuccessful pieces, which greatly increases production costs. Ceramics is an excellent material for sculpture, not just for creating functional objects. Practically any shape or effect can be achieved with ceramics.
Można uzyskać w ceramice.
Even imitating other sculptural materials like stone or metal is much easier with ceramics.
Kamień czy metal, to wszystko można uzyskać w ceramice dużo prościej niż w innych trudnych materiałach jak kamień na przykład. Myślę, że
I think my style is very recognizable.
Na czym polega?
What defines it? I believe my style lies in what, in painting, is referred to as the brush stroke.
Ciągnięciem pędzla. Robię to w ceramice. Każda rzecz.
I do this in ceramics. Each piece, especially those that are hand-formed,
ręcznie formowane, ona zawiera ślad.
bears the imprint of my hands and fingers.
Jest bardzo.
It's very personal, like a signature.
To jest jak podpis. Każdą formę.
Every
każdą
form,
filiżankę,
every cup,
każdy
every flower I shape by hand.
ręcznie, one
They are
są
uneven,
nierówne,
and in a sense you could call them
w pewnym sensie można
imperfect.
powiedzieć niedoskonałe, ale ja to
But I
nazywam
call it
doskonałą
perfect imperfection,
niedoskonałością.
and that's what
To
defines
właśnie
my style.
mój styl. W przypadku rzeczy
For objects
oddawanych
cast
z
from
formy,
molds, the process is quite straightforward and mostly well known. Porcelain clay is liquefied to the consistency of
wchłania
thick
się
cream,
glinkę
poured into the
porcelanową
mold, and a
do
thin layer
postaci
adheres to the
gęstej
mold.
śmietanki.
The
Wlewa się
excess
do
is
formy,
drained, leaving
na
the adhered
formie
layer as our
pojawia się
form,
cienka warstwa
our
tego
vessel,
wylewu, reszta się
sculpture,
zlewa i
plate.
to, co się przykleiło do gipsu, zostaje i jest już naszą formą, naszym naczyniem, naszą rzeźbą, talerzem, cokolwiek.
or whatever we are creating.
Potem
Then the piece is
wyjmujemy
removed
taki
from the
przedmiot
mold.
solny, doklejamy ucho,
A handle is
doklejamy,
attached or
suszymy
not,
przez kilka dni.
and then it's dried for several days
Następnie
before
taki
undergoing a
przedmiot
preliminary
ufarbić,
firing,
na
called
tak
bisque
zwany
firing.
wał biskwitowy. I potem kolejnym
The next
etapem
step
jest
involves glazing,
szkliwienie,
underglaze
dekorowanie
decoration,
terenu, na szkliwo dekorowanie,
or decorating
naszkliwienie
after glaze
farbami
firing with
naszkliwionymi
overglaze
lub
paints or
złotem,
gold,
które jest tak
which
bardzo
has become
modne
very
ostatnio.
popular in our country recently.
Inspiracją do mojej
The inspiration
pracy
for my
jest natura.
work comes from
Jest
nature.
to bardzo widoczne
This is
w
very
moich
evident
pracach,
in my
bardzo
pieces,
oczywiste.
particularly
Świat
the plant
roślin,
world,
większości,
but
ale
also
również
mushrooms
grzyby, różnego rodzaju
and various
pleśnie,
types of molds.
struktury, które tworzą takie organizmy, tworzą
These organisms
pod
create
względem
incredible
plastycznym,
textures and patterns.
niesamowity
that are visually
Obraz czy
stunning
wzór,
and inspire me greatly.
który mnie bardzo inspiruje. Niezmiennie
Porcelain has
modna
been
od
consistently
wielu już lat
fashionable
jest
for many
właśnie
years.
porcelana. Jest kilka pracowni
There are
w
several
Polsce,
studios in
które
Poland that create
wykonują
functional forms out of
użytkowe
porcelain.
formy właśnie z porcelany. I również
Similarly,
niezmiennie od
gold
kilku
has been
lat,
trendy for
modne
years,
jest złoto w
used in
przeróżnych
various
konfiguracjach,
configurations as
jako
accents
dodatki
like
w postaci
handles,
uszu,
spheres,
kuleczek,
or
jakichś,
knobs.
uchwytów. To złoto bardzo dobrze
Gold
gra
pairs
z
beautifully with
porcelaną,
porcelain,
ponieważ
warming
ociepla
it
tą
up.
porcelanę. Inne
Other
metale
precious
szlachetne
metals,
typu platyna na przykład,
like platinum,
nie
don't create
powodują
the
takiego
same wow
efektu
effect
jak
as gold
właśnie
does.
czyni złoto. Do swoich prac używam również materiałów
In my work, I also use non-ceramic
typu
materials such
kamienie,
as stones,
drewno,
wood,
metal.
and metal. The
Dostępność,
accessibility of ceramic
do
equipment and materials has made
urządzeń
ceramics
i
very
materiałów
popular as a
ceramicznych,
hobby.
sprawia, że ceramika stała się bardzo popularna jako hobby. Wiele osób, posiadając
Many
swoje
people
pracownie
with their own
ceramiczne,
ceramic studios
udziela również lekcji
also
i
offer
prowadzi
lessons and
warsztaty.
workshops.
Dzięki temu więcej osób może zapoznać
This
się
allows
z tą
more people to
technologią,
get acquainted with the craft,
i nauczyć się
either as a
albo
hobby
na zasadzie
or simply to
własnego
explore
później
it
hobby,
as an
albo po prostu
interesting and
poznać to
enjoyable
jako fajną
experience.
ciekawostkę, fajne doświadczenie.
Fabryka porcelany w Ćmielowie.
The Chmielów Porcelain Factory will celebrate its 235th anniversary next year. It is believed that in 1790, local potters who formed a collective began production of clay and ceramic vessels here. And after 1800, true porcelain production began. Over these 200 plus years, the factory in Chmielów has produced, designed, and released hundreds of patterns and collections. It can be said that since 1852, we have had porcelain collections in our offering that are still available for purchase today as part of the commercial offer of Polish porcelain factories. Due to this long-standing tradition, we draw inspiration from patterns created before and after the war. For example, the sphere or flat set from 1920 is still produced in our factory today. As for the shape and form, they remain identical. Of course, we make minor adjustments to certain elements of the tableware, but only to better adapt them to modern times and customer needs. You can certainly find our tableware in museums across Poland, including here with us, that look identical, meaning we have preserved the shapes and patterns. Maybe we introduced small changes, but without straying from the original designer's intent and project. It can be said that since the invention of porcelain, the technology has evolved, but these changes are not so big. We are, of course, talking about mechanization and technological processes, which, due to various transformations, also had to take place in our factory. However, we still cultivate the tradition of handmade production, especially manual decoration, casting, and molding of our products. At the same time, to meet today's expectations, we have modernized our machinery, adapted our kilns, and implemented isostatic presses, all to be able to deliver our products worldwide. Porcelain is surprising. It often manages to amaze us. We have established technological processes with specific guidelines, but even when we follow them, porcelain can still surprise us, presenting what we call challenges. Porcelain is certainly less predictable than one might think. It's not just a finished product, like a cup, teapot, or small decorations. No, porcelain certainly stands out for being thin-walled. So it is characterized by its translucency, whiteness, and delicacy. Nowadays, most factories are moving away from hand painting and craftsmanship, but we continue to uphold this tradition. This makes our porcelain even more valuable and unique in today's world. Because of this, we can confidently say that the porcelain produced here is timeless. And it is important to note that creating such porcelain in our factory requires a significant amount of human labor. Up to 80%. There is a great deal of craftsmanship involved, with many steps performed by hand throughout the production process, even in casting. These are figurines composed of numerous elements. Our figurines are cast in the casting department. The process is quite complex, as some figurines consist of many elements. Some have up to 30 individual components. This means 30 plaster molds that must be created, with each component being cast separately. Then, the appropriate time must be measured to achieve the required thickness of the figurine's wall. The next step involves attaching the individual parts. After that, the figurine undergoes drying and a bisque firing. The bisque firing serves to give the porcelain its physical properties, such as strength and porosity, which allows it to absorb glaze. This is the next stage in the technological process.
Można powiedzieć, że tutaj się wszystko zaczyna w tym dziale.
You could say that everything starts here, in this department. It all depends on the designer's concept, their thoughts, and imagination. To bring these ideas or assumptions to life, I usually work in a typical way, like most designers.
Najczęściej siadam w taki typowy sposób, jak większość osób, które projektują i
by transferring my thoughts onto paper.
przelewać na papier, prawda?
Most often, this involves a pencil and ruler. I gather a series of different graphic concepts in this way, and from them, I develop a more refined shape, complete with specific dimensions and verified capacity. The work of a designer at the porcelain factory largely revolves around defining the shapes of products, achieving the aesthetic of the item, and ensuring its functionality. Throughout, the designer must focus on creating products that are visually appealing, well-designed, and practical. This means considering technological and production-related aspects. Numerous factors influence the final outcome. Considering that porcelain is a very challenging ceramic material, with numerous deformations that need to be avoided, I apply certain design strategies. I work with counter shapes during the design process, which, after firing, result in a production line that helps prevent distortions. When it comes to ceramics, porcelain is perhaps the most mysterious material. A raw material that requires continuous exploration and innovation to master fully. In the industrial context, we cannot rely on randomness to dictate the outcome of the product. Instead, we must achieve nearly complete control over the shape to ensure its consistency and identical repeatability in every subsequent piece. Polish porcelain is highly regarded and has a long history. There are countries that still see us as pioneers, trendsetters, and leaders in the development of porcelain. This perception often stems from earlier times, including the 1970s and 1980s, when we supplied large quantities of porcelain to, for example, the Balkans. Today, when we work with modern clients from these regions, they have fond memories of porcelain from Chmielów and are eager to purchase it, continuing the tradition of Polish porcelain in their markets. The portfolio of Polish porcelain factories currently spans over 40 markets to which we supply our products. These include both very exotic countries and ones much closer to us. Among the more interesting examples, I can mention South Korea, where we have regular customers. Of course, we also serve all the Baltic states, and Polish porcelain is very popular in Germany, despite Germany being the cradle of European porcelain. In many ways, we are unique. Chmielów porcelain, for instance, is entirely produced in Europe, drawing on the expertise of our specialists. The decorations we create are designed in Poland, and we also collaborate with renowned designers, for example, from Italy. This is highly valued, as the designs are original and developed here in Poland. They are our own ideas, concepts born here, not imported or borrowed. What particularly excites our clients today is the revival of old forms and traditional products. White relief pieces, delicately decorated with gold or platinum, are currently in high demand. This trend is a response to the oversaturation of colorful porcelain in the market. That's why clients are seeking something that references the history of design, has roots in our culture, and evokes pleasant memories. I have been working with ceramics for over 30 years. I probably chose ceramics because it's the most versatile material and allows you to create objects in real time. That doesn't mean I'm not interested in other techniques. Of course I am. But ceramics is accessible. You can work with it almost anywhere, as long as you have a way to fire it. Even without your own kiln, you can always find one to use. That accessibility was very enticing. The truth is, I've been involved with ceramics since childhood. Through art high school, where ceramics was part of the curriculum, and later at university in the Faculty of Ceramics and Glass. My path seemed to have been set early on. I explored alternatives, like jewelry making, which I dabbled in, or painting and printmaking, which I love and occasionally return to. But I feel that ceramics can unify all these techniques in one medium. What's special about ceramics is the lack of limitations. You can experiment endlessly with materials, glazes, and firing processes, where tiny nuances, sometimes just a few degrees in the kiln, can create drastically different results. That's what makes it such an intriguing material for me. I'm always surprised by what I find in the kiln. Even though I consider myself quite experienced in this field, I still often open the kiln and find myself completely amazed by the outcome. The most enjoyable stage is shaping objects from soft clay, as it gives a sense of total freedom and control. I decide when the shape is complete. Of course, working with soft material has its limits. You have to refine the piece as the clay begins to harden, then dry it, sand it, and perfect the shape. The process doesn't end when you're shaping the soft clay. It truly concludes only after the final firing in the kiln. The idea of using gold in my ceramics probably arose when I first encountered it in a porcelain factory. I was fascinated by the transformation process, how an unremarkable brown substance, through high temperatures, becomes a stunning golden finish. As I delved deeper, I learned it must be real gold. No glaze or coating could replicate that effect.
Żadne szkliwo, żadna inna powłoka nie da takiego efektu. Nie ukrywam, że od razu byłam z miejsca.
I was enchanted by the method from the start.
Więc ten pomysł ze mną został i w zasadzie od czasu.
The idea stuck with me, and ever since my initial experiments with gilded pieces during my studies, I couldn't let it go.
Nie dawało mi to spokoju i faktycznie w momencie, jak
When I opened my own workshop, I knew I had to revisit this technique.
To jest niesamowite, że w zasadzie
It's incredible how an unassuming brown coating,
jest powłoką, która w żaden
with
sposób
no
nie
hint of what it
zapowiada
will
tego, co
become,
wyjdzie z pieca. Przemienia się
transforms in the kiln into a beautiful, radiant layer of luminous gold which is delightful to use.
Muszę sama to stwierdzić, że każdy.
I have to admit that every time I drink or interact with such a piece, it's pure pleasure, truly.
Naprawdę.
I ceramika jest wspaniałym hobby.
Ceramics is a wonderful hobby,
Jest
a fantastically calming activity, almost like a form of meditation. I know that people with stressful professional lives find great relaxation and relief through working with ceramics.
Świetnie przy tej ceramice wypoczywają, odstresowują się.
And often, it becomes more than just a hobby for them.
Czymś więcej niż hobby.
They say porcelain is white gold, and I think there's a lot of truth to that.